We did 2 weeks in the studio, and basically the vibe was all the producers I lined up like 8 or 10 different keyboards and bass, guitar, a mic for vocals, a mic for a piano, like everything was live. So it was like 20 tracks of just stuff, and all the producer could just kind of jump on whatever they wanted to, and they would just create and vibe off different jams. And then Solange will come in and say, oh, okay, I like this, what you're doing, let's loop that, let's take this. And then a lot of times, I think Don't You Wait from the album, From a Seat at the Table, was created this way, where I think we had gotten to that groove where they were just playing, and this was like, we had been in the studio for a few hours, and she walked in and just picked up the mic and basically just freestyled that.
Yeah, check it out. I'm your host, Corey Cambridge. Yeah. Everybody tuning in, you invited. No matter what mood you in, get excited. Everybody love the music, let me tell you how they do it. Whether writer or an agent, let me tell you how they made it. You are now talking to a silent giant. Wanna walk in their shoes, silent giants. Wanna study they moves, silent giants. Wanna know what they do, silent giants. Silent giants, y'all. Welcome to the Silent Giants Podcast, a podcast highlighting the superstars behind your favorite superstars in creative industries. I'm your host, Corey Cambridge. To keep up with the latest on the show, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Silent Giants Podcast. To keep up with my life, music, and more, be sure to follow me as well at Corey Cambridge. Today's episode features a very special guest, Michaelan Blue Spruce, aka Blue the Engineer, the Grammy Award-winning engineer behind Solange Knowles' album, A Seat at the Table. In this episode, Blue talks about his career, the makings of A Seat at the Table, and how it felt to win his first Grammy Award. So without further ado, let me introduce you guys to Grammy Award-winning engineer, my friend, the silent giant, Michaelan Blue Spruce.
All right, Blue, welcome to the show, my man.
What's good, man? Happy to be here, bro.
Dude, happy to see you again. Happy to reunite.
Yes, sir.
It's been a long time. So happy to have you on the show, man.
Awesome,
super blessed
man.
to have you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to be here, bro.
First, where are you from, brother?
I grew up in Seattle. I moved here when I was 18 to go to NYU.
Okay.
And so that's what brought me to New York, and I've been here basically ever since.
What was your experience like growing up in Seattle?
Seattle was great. I mean, when I was growing up, Seattle it has its own vibe. It's like very West Coast to a certain degree, but removed from the Cali scene because it's so far north. And so it definitely has its own like feel. It's pretty rainy, so it's a little depressing that, the whole Kurt Cobain suicide capital narrative is somewhat accurate. But it definitely has its own scene. It always had its own music scene and has had a lot of contributions to the musical world over the years. Quincy Jones from Seattle.
Jimi Hendrix, my man Jake One, who's a great producer, did stuff for G Unit, a lot of people. Like we have our mild, and then of course my man Macklemore, who So
Mix-a-Lot. Yeah, yo. People think my Posse's on Broadway is about Broadway in New York, but it's definitely not. It's about Broadway in Seattle.
Really?
Yeah. Broadway is the strip where for years and years it was all, Capitol Hills, where all the clubs and little venues, party spots are at.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. My Posse's on Broadway is about Seattle.
You know what I think about when I think of Seattle?
What's that?
I think about Free Willy.
Wait, what?
And there's a scene in Free Willy, real talk. There's a scene in Free Willy where like Jesse's going through on his bike and like they're tossing fish in the fish market.
Yeah.
That's in Seattle.
Yeah, definitely. Was Free Willy set in Seattle?
Yeah. Remember the old head in Free Willy?
Yeah.
Like the old kind of like Native American guy?
Yes.
He had on Seattle Supersonics hat.
Wow, that's real. That's real. I'm going to have to rewatch Free Willy because I had no idea that it was in Seattle.
My earliest memories of Seattle. Never been there, but I think of Free Willy.
You know what's funny is that's probably because I lived in Seattle, so it's just like, yeah, that's normal. They throw fish at every market. But that's only in Seattle.
How did you first like get into music?
My birth mom, she was really into music. She always played soul and, Motown, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, like all growing up. I still remember when Gangsta's Paradise came out by Coolio, it was like my favorite song instantly. As soon as it came out, I loved that song, and I played it for my mom. I might have been 10 or 12 years old when it came out. And I'm like, Mom, you gotta listen to this new song. Like, it's so awesome. And I play it for her. And she's like, this is Stevie Wonder. Like, what are you doing? I played this for you when I was pregnant with you.
Wow.
So it's like something,
full circle.
super full circle. So something must have drawn me to that song and just that type of style in general. Like that, I loved Michael Jackson growing up. I had the bad tape on deck in my little play school boombox everywhere I went.
87.
Yep, 87.
87.
That was when he was born. Didn't it come out 80?
It was born. 87? It came out 87, but it was like rocking in 88.
Yeah, maybe. I thought it was 86, 87.
Nah. I think it came out 87 because I think the world tour was in 88.
Oh, okay. You might be right. My dates get a little fuzzy. I wasn't that old in that time period.
I'm also like a humongous Michael Jackson nerd.
That's good. We on the same page. Have you seen Moonwalker?
Of course. Okay. With Joe Pesci?
Yeah, of course.
Come on, dog.
Good. I mean, there's people who swear they like Michael Jackson. They say, "Oh, you seen Moonwalker," and they look at you crazy.
No, I had the video game, dog.
Oh, I used to play that in the arcade.
Yeah, that shit was real.
There was a corner store by my house that had the arcade of Moonwalker back in the day, and I used to go in there just to play that.
I remember going to Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. Actually, it wasn't even a Blockbuster. It was like a movie time. It was like a hood.
The hood Blockbuster. Okay.
Like no carpet on the floor.
Gotcha.
Type spot.
Gotcha.
But they had Moonwalker in there.
Yo.
So I was like, yo, we gotta cop this joint. Michael's kicking ass, dog.
I had the bootleg tape of Moonwalker that I had taped off of TV, like when they showed it on TV.
Yeah.
So like a black tape with a masking tape label with Sharpie on it that said Moonwalker, and I watched that shit 1,000 times.
Dog, yo, much love to Joe Pesci.
Yo, with the scene, the super dramatic scene with the gun in the end.
He was scary, dog.
Yeah. Nah, that was definitely a traumatic part of that movie. My favorite part was when they did the claymation video of Smooth Criminal, and Michael Jackson dance battled the bunny version of himself in the desert.
Yes,
fire.
Yo, I gotta rewatch that. Yo. We gotta add that to the list.
There you go. That's part of the movie.
We gotta add that to the list.
I swore that
we got like 4 movies now.
Yo, I told myself after MJ passed away that like every year on his birthday I would watch Moonwalker, but I have yet to do it. So maybe soon we could do that.
We gotta find it. Like, where's it gonna be at though? Like, Hulu?
I have.
Is it maybe on Amazon?
I feel like I have it on a hard drive. I found it on like a torrent site years ago, and I was mad hyped, so I just downloaded it and kept it on the stash. But I have to find it.
Damn, torrent.
Yeah, like years.
That was like
it might have been like LimeWire era. Like
that was like back in like the downloading porn days.
There you go. There you go.
Like Moonwalker and like Big Asses 6.
Booty Talk number 4.
Yeah, I found it.
Yes, sir.
So
they write in the same folder.
Yeah, it's like shit, honey, I found it.
Yes, just ignore all the rest of the stuff in that folder.
And so Blue, did you always know? Like, did you always know that you wanted to be involved in music, and how did you first get introduced to it? As far as you being involved, just like making music.
When I was really young, I played the drums, and that was my first introduction into like being a musician, I would say. It didn't last too long. I mean, I played for a few years and I really enjoyed it. But once I got to like late middle school, early high school, when if you were a drummer, you had to like be in the jazz band and learn how to read music and all of this more advanced stuff. I just was like, nah, this is not for me. I just like playing. My original drum teacher was very like funk and rock. Like he just taught me drum patterns. So I liked that part, but I didn't like reading music and stuff like that.
Okay.
So after that, I became a DJ. So all throughout high school, I would DJ, do little like mixtapes in the crib, real mixtapes where I had the turntables hooked up to a tape player and just recorded.
Wow.
So you had to do it right once.
And
if you messed up, you had to weigh whether it was worth redoing again, because you're like, I might mess up again and it's not worth it. So you had to spend like an hour. And I never really did anything with the mixtapes. It was more just for me. So it would be like, this is like the Raucous Records, Mos Def, Talib Kweli era. So I would blend all of their records at Outkast or, whatever was my favorite music at the time. And just kind of to practice and stuff like that. And I did a few shows, local shows. That period was just me, really diving into the Seattle hip hop scene, seeing like Mos Def, The Roots, all of those guys, and then the local openers in Seattle all throughout high school. That was like my life.
Did you ever have a desire to be on stage talent as far as like vocally, or?
No, never. I've never written a rap in my life. I've never written a singing song. I never wanted to be a singer. And I think at that time period, I mean, I don't know if it was just because we were young or what, but it felt like you had to do something. So everybody was either like, you were either a rapper or you were a DJ or you were a break dancer or you were like an artist. Like you had to kind of, if you were into hip hop, you had to like have a role. And so that's why I was a DJ, because I felt like that was being behind the scenes but still involved in the music felt like my place. And so I think that's what really transitioned me into engineering, because I don't want to say it's the same role, but it's similar. There's a lot of similarities.
So when did the transition happen from DJ to engineer?
I was in NYU. I went to NYU. My major was music technology. And that was very engineering based, but I didn't really know kind of what engineering was at that time. Like, it was before the era of everybody having Pro Tools in their house, or it was before GarageBand and all that. So it was like, if you wanted to make songs, you had to go to a studio.
Okay.
I started college. I mean, I'm not that old. I started college in 2002, but it was before the time where you could sit here and record a podcast with a tiny little recorder. Like, it didn't work like that. So I didn't really know much about engineering, and I started working with an artist. I thought I wanted to be a producer. So
okay.
I thought I wanted to make beats, and I got Reason, and I was like trying to make beats, and my first beat sucked, but that's kind of everybody who makes beats. So it wasn't just because, like, everybody's, when they start, is not good. So that's not what discouraged me. Just kind of like, when I would come home and try to sit down to make beats, I just didn't have the drive to sit there and make beats all day. But I started working with an artist who was he was from Seattle, and he had moved out to New York, actually. And he was a producer and rapper. And so he made his own beats and he rapped, and, kind of like naturally just fell into that engineering role. He needed somebody to record him and kind of clean up his music and get it ready for the world. So, like, through that, and then the fact that my program at NYU was mostly based on engineering, it kind of just fell in line. And I found a really big passion for this side of it, because my mind is very technical, and also, but it's still a lot of room to be creative.
At what point at NYU did it kind of hit you, like, you know what, I'm going to go into this engineering thing? Was like your freshman year, sophomore year?
Well, my freshman year, I actually like finagled my way into the engineering program, because in order to audition for the engineering program, you had to like play an instrument, and I wasn't good enough to I didn't feel like I was good enough at playing the drums to like audition with the drums. So I just started NYU as like a regular, undecided student, and then I just kind of like went to the office and asked them, and just tried to figure out my way in there. So I didn't get into the engineering program until my sophomore year. Okay. And I would say pretty much that year, nobody really socially saw me after that. I have friends who I used to hang out with really heavy freshman year that like they'll tell you like, yo, after sophomore year, I didn't see him ever.
Wow.
Because I was just in the studio. I would stay in the NYU studios. They used to let, my boy worked there. He worked as like, he would rent the gear out to people. And so they would let him book overnight time. So they locked the building at like 7 p.m. and they would unlock it at 7 in the morning.
Okay.
So they would let us book time overnight, but we had to stay there all night. We couldn't leave because the door was locked. So we would just book, and he would bring his boys to record, and we would just record music and mix all night. We had an SSL board, so we're like kids in a candy store.
What was it like, the transition coming from Seattle to New York, as far as like getting used to the speed of the city? Was it a big learning curve for you?
I think I always wanted to be here. I mean, like growing up, I listened to, Nas, Jay. Like I always kind of was really enthralled by the energy of New York. And so being in the village to me was like a dream come true. I'm in NYU, I'm in West Fourth. Like there's record stores, there's cool stuff going on. Like Seattle's a big city, but it's, you drive everywhere. So in New York, you can come and you walk around, like you see things all, so I think right away I took to it pretty easily. It definitely was an adjustment, but I feel like I was really just ready to be here. So I think it was just, it happened pretty naturally.
What was your, excuse me, what was your introduction into getting into the music industry? Or like your first kind of like industry job?
Well, I mean, I have a studio right around the corner, as you know, right on 39th Street. Lounge Studios is my home. I've been there basically since I graduated college. I graduated college in 2006 and started working there like 2 months after that. That was like my first, I don't want to say my first job. I had gotten paid as an engineer before that, but it was always like I would go to like some hood studio in the Bronx and like work at nighttime and mix their records. Because I was good enough to kind of like get a little money, charge people like $20 an hour or something like that, but didn't have a regular place to work.
Okay.
So I would say starting at Lounge was my first real like home base and place to work out of. And at that time, we really didn't have a lot of industry clients. We had a few, but it built up over the years just because of the quality of the studio. And then, of course, I was trying to do my thing,
Yeah. So also, what was the first artist that you recorded where you were like, wow, like this is happening right now?
The first person I had to say was Slim from 112. And it sounds random because even at the time he was like, I would say like past his heyday.
Yeah.
But he was a real cool dude. It was like a guy who I had worked with, got him for a feature. So he recorded the hook. And that was my first like session where I remember being like, oh, this is a famous person that's in the studio that's like right here. Somebody that I saw in videos when I was young, right here standing in the studio. And I'm recording him and I'm like the guy. I remember he had, during the studio session, that's how you knew it was like an industry thing. It was different than a normal session because he had like a fitting for some photo shoot. And so like we only have really one space in the studio. There's a control room and there's a live room, but there's big windows. So it's like you can't close the window. Like you can see. So he put like a big sheet so he could change his clothes in the studio because he didn't want to like go into the bathroom to do it. So it was just, that was like, but to me, it felt like a very industry moment. Like,
dog, this dude gets a sheet.
Yeah, like, well, just like,
he don't even go in the bathroom.
He's having a fitting. Like he's doing, somebody's giving him a bunch of clothes to try on, and then he picks them, and then and of course in my mind, he was getting them for free. I don't know if he was or not, but it's just like this, like very industry. It felt very industry.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I can't even lie. That was my first time being in that type of environment working. But I mean, I'm skipping my whole, I interned at Baseline as well. So that was like my real,
Jay-Z's.
Yeah. Well, it was right after Jay-Z sold it to Just Blaze.
Okay.
And so I was there for about 2 or 3 months. I was like the unofficial intern runner for Guru. I only like to be there when Guru was there. I was like a kind of a snobby intern. I can't even lie. I was like, I don't want to be here with anybody. I just want to study under Guru because he's the man. And so I got to see, Meth Bleak record and a couple of things like that. So that was me as an intern just sitting there watching.
Was there anything that you learned from watching Guru?
It was tough, man. It was like he had just got the A&R position at Def Jam, and he would come to the studio 7, 8 o'clock and then pretty much just work and then fall asleep on the studio couch. So I didn't really get to talk to him much. I just got to watch him. And it wasn't watching him like right up on his side. It was like watching him from the back studio couch.
Yeah. Because,
you got to be a fly on the wall. When you're in the studio and you're an intern, you have to disappear.
Right, especially in the creative process. Like,
man, you can't get in the way.
Right.
Because anything you do wrong, somebody's like, who the fuck is this guy? Why is he in my session? Get him the fuck out of here.
Right.
So I tried not to make waves. I just, really it was just more of his approach to like watching him work and watching how he put things together sonically. Because he was working on an SSL board. So from far away, I can't see like what EQ he's, I could see, okay, he's brightening the vocals, he's adding this delay, reverb, but I couldn't see any of the settings. So it's not really like direct techniques I could take, but it was just more of an overall like sonic, this is how he puts together a song.
Did you have a mentor as an engineer or someone that kind of took you under their wing or you kind of modeled yourself kind of a little bit after the way they moved or like some of their techniques?
I would say the only person I would consider a mentor is my boy who we lost touch. I would love to get back in touch with him. My boy, his name was Ted. We went to college together and he taught me how to use Pro Tools. So he was like the first person to say, okay, yo, this is how you record in Pro Tools. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. But after college, we kind of lost touch. He recorded 50 Cent, I Get Money. That was his I don't know. Hopefully maybe he's done something since, but that was his big moment of doing a big record. It was dope, man. That was probably my only really mentor, but I didn't have a lot of engineers, they sit under a big engineer for years and years and don't really get their kind of own, they don't get their own shine until years later. Right. And I didn't really have that period. I was 22 and I started being the head engineer at a studio. And so I kind of skipped that phase and then I built up the studio as I built myself up.
Right.
Kind of.
It's also interesting too, I feel like that the engineers that I know is because rappers shout them out. I didn't know who Guru was until Jay-Z shouted Guru out.
Yeah.
Or Bob Power.
Yeah, true.
Because Q-Tip will, say interception.
Yeah.
So I feel like rappers really shout out.
Nah, that's real talk because you don't the Rolling Stones aren't shouting out their engineer.
Right.
Well, and when you look at old sessions, especially old rock sessions, the engineer always just looks like
I mean, really, even in rap stuff, it's just now getting to where engineers are kind of like stylish guys. But like the engineer, when you see a picture of the studio, the engineer is always like the lamest guy in the picture.
Moppy.
he got the ponytail, or like the faded t-shirt, bro. Like it's all you always can. You can look at any picture, and be like, that's the engineer.
That's the engineer.
Right away.
Engineer.
And so that's. I mean, I try to change that. Hopefully, I try to add my little flair and aesthetic to
good,
my.
Bro. You're good. And so I want to get into Solange's album.
Okay, yeah.
So how did you first meet Solange? How did that opportunity like come about? I know you worked with her for years now.
Yeah, it's been a while. I had to think about it the other day. Like 8 years, I think. We started working together in 9 years. We started working together in 2008. So the first thing I ever did with her, she came to Lounge, to my studio, during an EMI session. She was at the time signed to EMI as a writer. You know, she wrote a few records for her sister,
right, for Beyonce, yeah.
and you know, got a publishing deal. But I don't think she ever really wanted to be a songwriter for other people. The songs that she wrote for her sister, I think, were just songs she wanted to write, and it happened that they landed on her sister's album. I don't think it was this thing of like, I'm gonna be a songwriter.
Right.
So when she came in for her EMI session, we did a lot of songwriting sessions for EMI at the time, and she came in and was like, yeah, they want me to write songs, but I think I'm gonna do this cover version of a song that I really like. So it was a song called "Stillness Is the Move" by the Dirty Projectors. Shout out to my man Dave Longstreth. It was him and two female singers were the group, and they were an indie kind of band from Brooklyn, very like left field, you know, weird kind of vibes, but dope music. And she did a R&B version of their basically biggest song at the time. And she did it over depending on how old you are, it's either the Bag Lady beat by Erykah Badu or the Explosive beat by Dr. Dre.
Same beat.
Yeah.
The same exact beat.
So depending on what area you grew up in, you're
Explosive.
So I can't remember, but either way, we flipped it, we changed the key, and she sung that song in a very like lush R&B harmonies, like super dope. If you ever look it up, it's dope. And so that was the first thing we ever did together. She recorded it with me, and then we mixed it, and it ended up getting on the 2009 Time magazine Songs of the Year. So the reason I say it did, because the Time magazine listed the original with the cover as the number whatever 7 song of the year.
Okay.
So it wasn't just the original. So I know that Solange's version helped blow it up past that. So that was the first thing we ever did together. And then soon after that, she moved to New York and started working on the True EP, which we did together in my studio in Lounge Studios. And the rest is kind of history.
And so, how does the process work with the table? Was it like a collection of songs you guys kind of had already, like working that became an album, or was like, you know what, let me call it Blue, we're gonna do an album? Like, what was the process like making it? It was
kind of like that. She has another recording engineer who lives in Houston, my man Nino, who she worked with before me, who she worked with during her whole like Hadley Street and Soul Angel, like. He was working for, was it Music World, Matthew Knowles' company?
Yeah.
So she was very close with him. So it was basically me, and when she started A Seat at the Table, it was, True came out in 2012. Seat at the Table, she started working right in 2013. She basically started right away. And her whole thing for that album was she wanted to go places and create. So the first session was actually, I wasn't there, it was Nino, which there's a great behind the scenes video of her creating Don't Touch My Hair. So it was her, Nino, Sampha, a few other producers and musicians and stuff in the room, and they were writing Don't Touch My Hair. And that was in the summer of 2013. And then I started, she booked me to go down to New Orleans in like October of that year, and we did 2 weeks in this huge church in New Orleans, because by that time she had moved to New Orleans. And she booked this studio, which was in a church that was destroyed in Katrina, and then somebody bought it and turned it into a studio. So the live room of the studio was the church main hall. Huge, beautiful church organ, and then, you know, some of the best acoustics in the world are in churches. A lot of times better than performance halls. Churches have great acoustics historically, even like going back in history. And so the acoustics were great. So basically on that trip, it was me as the engineer. We had Dave Longstreth, who I mentioned earlier from Dirty Projectors. Sampha was there, who at this time, now everybody knows him, but back then he was, just starting out doing his thing, but super dope. That guy, his voice, like everything.
Unbelievable.
Everything that comes out of his mouth, I say, his voice is just amazing. He can sing anything and it sounds great. So it was him, Sampha, my man Quest, who's a British producer and artist, and then Adam Bainbridge, who goes by Kindness.
Okay.
A producer named Benga, and who else was there? I think that was everybody. Please don't let me forget anybody. But yeah, we did 2 weeks in the studio, and basically the vibe was all the producers I lined up like 8 or 10 different keyboards and bass, guitar, a mic for vocals, a mic for a piano, like everything was live. So it was like 20 tracks of just stuff, and all the producer could just kind of jump on whatever they wanted to, and they would just create and vibe off different jams. And then Solange will come in and say, oh, okay, I like this, what you're doing, let's loop that, let's take this. And then a lot of times, I think Don't You Wait from the album, From a Seat at the Table, was created this way, where I think we had gotten to that groove where they were just playing, and this was like, we had been in the studio for a few hours, and she walked in and just picked up the mic and basically just freestyled that. Like basically just sang that whole melody, sang pretty much every part of that song. I don't think there was anything that's in the song that wasn't initially recorded just in a mumble take. A lot of times she'll mumble a lot of the words, but it's the main idea of the song. I mean, you're a writer, so you already know.
Of course.
You mumble until then you get the words.
And so the entire process of making Seat at the Table was 2 years?
More than that. It started in 2013, so that until it came out was 3 years, and like 3 years and change. And then if you include, so I wasn't there for this part either. Cranes in the Sky was written in 2009. So about 8 years ago. At this time, maybe 7 and change from when the album came out. And what's funny about that record is she did it. Raphael Sadiq did the main elements of the majority of the production. I would say he did the drums, the bass. Basically, what it was a track with drums, bass, and the strings that you hear in the song, the synth strings. Okay. And she had that kind of on tuck the whole time we were working on what came to be A Seat at the Table, but didn't ever quite know if she was going to use it. Which is funny because it became, the most celebrated song on the album and a lot of people's favorites.
I tried to put one in the air. I tried to dance it away. I tried to change it with my hair.
And I always loved it. Whenever she would play it, I'd be like, yo, I hope she puts this on the album. It's so dope.
Yeah.
And it basically, again, it was one of those where I even pulled up the files recently to see what the first mumble track was, and it's basically the whole song. There's an additional part that she ended up editing out, but it's basically the whole song. She wrote it in 2009 and just kind of had it in her back pocket. Wow. So I would say the majority of everything happened in those 3 years, but then Seat at the Table predates basically everything else on the album.
And so you won a Grammy.
Yeah. Oh, Cranes in the Sky. I'm sorry. Cranes in the Sky predates everything. I think I said that wrong. Anyway, yes, go ahead.
But you won a Grammy.
Yes, sir.
And so where were you when you won your first Grammy?
So I was in the studio, man. I was working on an album.
You were in the studio.
Yeah.
When you won your first Grammy.
Yeah, man, it's weird when the song, you work on a song that gets nominated for a Grammy, there's no you think that this care package gets dropped down from the sky, and then you get tickets and all that. But no, you have to actually have connections in the Grammy Association to get tickets. And now I'm a voting member of the Grammys after that. Shout out. So
subtle flex.
I might be able to vote somebody in there. So be nice to me.
Well, you can vote for your own shit.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I definitely will be doing that if it ends up. We don't get to so the voting members don't choose what's on the ballots, but we can definitely choose. We can definitely vote. So I'm in there.
Wait, so you can vote for yourself?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So you just have to, and this is to anybody who does work on music, it's relatively easy to become a voting member of the Grammys. You have to have, I think it's 12 credited songs on Discogs or All Music
Okay.
So any like commercial releases that then get picked up by Discogs or All Music, and when I say 12, it doesn't mean 12 albums, it's 12 songs.
Okay.
So, you know, Solange's album by itself fulfills that requirement. Anything else I've done over the years.
Gotcha.
So yeah, if you have music that's out there, you know, definitely sign up, man. We gotta have accurate representation by us creatives in the voting field.
There we go. I agree.
But yeah, so I was in the studio when I found out, and it's funny because I knew that there's only certain categories that get announced on TV. It's really only like 6 or 8 categories that get announced. We think that there's like a bunch of them, but it's really the whole Grammys is performances, and there's like 8 winners.
Right.
So the rest of the whatever like 70 categories that there are get announced in a pre-ceremony. So I knew that they were going to announce it before the ceremony, and I knew I had to work. So I told my wife, I was like, don't tell me ahead of time, because I want to wait for because you know during the ceremony they'll like flash like earlier tonight this person won and this person won. So I wanted to have that moment of like seeing it, and so I told her don't tell me. But then like I kind of like
you got too many goons in these streets, man.
Well, it got close to that time, and she called me and she let me know that we had won, and she was like, just I didn't want some, because right after that my phone just blew up. She was like, I know people are gonna call you and tell you, and I want to be at least the one to tell you that you won. So it was dope. It was a super, humbling and awesome moment, man. We went after that. I stopped working about an hour after that. Went home and we chilled and had some drinks and watched the ceremony and stuff like that. So it was a really great moment. I wasn't able to be there this year. I didn't jump on getting tickets early enough, but hopefully next year I'll get in there.
What'd your mom say?
Oh, she was super proud of me, and just it's kind of an amazing thing. Like when you start in this music thing, you don't ever think. I mean, you want to get that big. You want to get to a point where like, oh, yo, I worked on this song, that won a Grammy. Like, you want to get that big, but you don't ever think that it's really possible. And so when it happens, it's like, yo, I really did it. Like, that's a huge milestone to me. Anybody who, we can hate on the Grammys all we want, but anybody as a musician still wants one. Man.
Grammy Award winning Blue, the engineer. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love you, man. Best of luck.
Oh man, it's a pleasure, bro. It's great to see you doing your thing, man. This is a dope series, man. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you so much to Blue the Engineer for stopping by the show today. Special thanks to the Silent Giants behind this episode of the Silent Giants podcast. Mixing engineer Jay Goodman, photographer Kayla Kahlberg, and theme music produced by Richard Mallory. I'm your host, Corey Cambridge, signing off till next time.